Assalamu alaikum. Welcome on to Easy Human Anatomy channel. General Anatomy of the Nervous System, Part 5. In this video, following topics are discussed: synapse, neuromuscular junction, neurotransmitter, some important terminology related with membrane potential, confusing terminology, dermatome, myotome, motor unit, and reflex. As first, synapse. Synapse means the connection between one neuron with another neuron, or one neuron to muscle, or one neuron to gland. So, according to the function, synapses are three types. And according to the connection, synapses are three types. When synapse is occurred in between two neurons, this is usually known as synapse. The synapse between neuron and muscle known as the neuromuscular junction, and synapse between neuron and glands known as the neuroglandular synapse. So this is the dendrite, this is the nerve cell body. So dendrite collects information, and this information is processed in the nerve cell body and passed through the axon. This is the axon terminal, and here the synapse is from. This is a motor neuron. This is the axon of the motor neuron or motor nerve. Terminal portion of the motor nerve or axon form a special structure, neuromuscular junction. And through this synapse, the action potential of the neuron is passed to another neuron. And in this neuromuscular junction, action potential of the neuron is passed to the muscle, and action potential is spread to the muscle, and muscular contraction is occur, a movement is occur. Here, axon, terminal portion of the axon form the neuroglandular synapses, and when action potential is to the gland, glandular secretion is exit. According to structurally, the synapses are two types: chemical synapse and electrical synapse. The chemical synapse has following part. This is presynaptic membrane. This is the terminal portion of the axon of first neuron. This is the second neuron. This portion is known as the postsynaptic membrane, and there is a gap present in between presynaptic membrane and postsynaptic membrane. This is known as the synaptic cleft. When action potential is reached the terminal portion of the axon, the voltage gated calcium channel is open, and due to this calcium channel is bind with the synaptic vesicle which contain neurotransmitter, and it move the synaptic vesicle toward the presynaptic membrane, and this synaptic vesicle is fused with presynaptic membrane, and ultimately it exits its neurotransmitter. Neurotransmitter pass through the synaptic cleft, and it's bind with the receptor present on the postsynaptic membrane. By this process, the action potential of the following cell is passed to another cell. The thickness of the presynaptic membrane and postsynaptic membrane sometimes symmetrical, sometimes asymmetrical. When the thickness is symmetrical, these synapse known as the inhibitory synapse. Here, instead of excite this neuron, there is no excitement occur in this particular neuron. When the thickness of the postsynaptic membrane is more than the presynaptic membrane, this type of synapse known as the excitatory synapse. Here, action potential is passed from the one neuron to another neuron. Now the electrical synapse. In electrical synapse, the presynaptic membrane and postsynaptic membrane is very closely bind, and there presence of gap junction or channel. And through this gap junction, action potential and easily pass. So it is a very rapid process and it is not common in our body. It's seen in some particular tissue, for example, cardiac muscle and eye. Now neuromuscular junction. This is the presynaptic terminal portion of the motor axon and it's bind with the sarcolemma of skeletal muscle, and this is the synaptic plex. So the calcium gated channel is open and the synaptic vesicle is fused with the presynaptic membrane, and neurotransmitter is fused and it's bind with the receptor present on the sarcolemma, and action potential is spread to the skeletal muscle, causes contraction of the myofilament and movement is occur. Neurotransmitter. Neurotransmitter substance, by through this they can communicate with each other. So there's a lot of not only neurotransmitter, there's a neurotransmitter, neuromodulator, neurohormone, and all of these are role to synaptic transmission or passes of information from one neuron to another neuron. So these are the example of excitatory neurotransmitter. This is example of inhibitory neurotransmitter. This is the example of the neuromodulator. This is the example of neurohormones. Acetylcholine is the common neurotransmitter and it found in the both central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. And in peripheral nervous systems, it's activate muscle and major neurotransmitter of autonomic nervous system. All preganglionic neuron of the autonomic nervous system secrete acetylcholine, and parasympathetic postganglionic parasympathetic neuron also secrete acetylcholine. So whole parasympathetic system and preganglionic neuron of the sympathetic system release acetylcholine. Now some membrane potential terminology. Within the cell, in the inactive cell, the voltage is negative and this condition is known as the resting membrane potential, and when this cell is active, the negativity within the cell is decreased and this condition known as the depolarization. After and it reach a peak, this is the peak action potential. When it reach the peak action potential, the positivity decrease. This condition known as the repolarization. When it's more negative than the resting membrane potential, this condition is known as the hyperpolarization. So what is resting membrane potential? Resting membrane potential means electrically inactive neuron. When neuron are not working, this is inactive neuron. Its typical value lies between -50 to -75 millivolt. During resting membrane potential, there are more sodium outside the cell and more potassium within the cell. And here this is the sodium potassium pump. Here from inside 3 sodium is bind with this pump, and due to the presence of ATP it's go outside. So 3 sodium is go outside, and from outside 2 potassium is bind and potassium enter within the cell. So negativity of the inside the cell increase by the action of the sodium-potassium pump. Depolarization is the electrical change within a neuron resulting in less negative charge inside the cell compared to outside, and here sodium channel open and sodium start to enter within the cell, so the negativity within the cell is start to decrease. This is the sodium channel. It is open, so from the outside sodium is enter within the cell, and within the cell positivity is increased. Repolarization. After the action potential, so action potential is the whole thing: resting membrane potential, depolarization, repolarization, and hyperpolarization. Whole process is known as the action potential. So it's defined as a sudden, fast, transitory, propagating change of resting membrane potential. Only neuron and muscle cell are capable of generating action potential. So repolarization bring the cell back to the resting membrane potential. So repolarization means reactivity within the cell is increased. So when repolarization is start, the potassium channel is open and potassium go outside, and sodium channel is closed, so negativity within the cell is increased. Hyperpolarization. When the potassium channel is open more time, this causes more negativity within the cell. So potassium channel is still open after resting membrane potential, and it is closed after hyperpolarization. So this is the sodium potassium pump. Due to the sodium potassium pump, 3 sodium is go outside, 2 potassium go inside. It creates a negativity within the cell. This is known as the resting membrane potential. When sodium channel is open, the huge number of sodium is entered within the cell and positivity within the cell is increased. This is known as the depolarization. During repolarization or hyperpolarization, what happened? The sodium channel is stopped, the potassium channel is open, so potassium go outside the cell, create negativity within the cell. So in resting cell, the sodium channel is closed and neuron is inactive. In active neuron, sodium channel is open and sodium enter within the cell. Now how action potential is go from the nerve cell body toward the terminal portion of the axon. This is the axon hillock, and this is the myelination by the Schwann cell, and there is a gap between gap of myelinations, because this is a Schwann cell, this is another Schwann cell, this is another Schwann cell, and you know the Schwann cell only causes myelinations of a single axon, single short segment of a axon. So there is a this portion is not myelinated, and this particular portion is known as the node of Ranvier. The concentration of the sodium channel is different in different part of the neuron, At the initial portions of the axon, the number of the sodium channel is 350 to 500 per square micron. But at the node of Ranvier, the number of sodium channel is 2000 to 12,000 per square micron. And other part of the nerve cell body and nerve terminal, the number of the sodium channel is less. So here when action potential is at the axon hillock, the large number of sodium channel is open and rapid action potential is occur, and this action potential usually spread in a jumping fashion, and this is known as the saltatory conduction. Now some confusing terminology of the nervous system: dermatome, myotome, motor unit. Dermatome is the area of the skin supplied by the sensory part of a single spinal nerve. So dermatome, myotome all are related with single spinal nerve. Dermatome is related with sensory system, so sensory part of single spinal nerve, it collects sensory information from the particular portion of the skin by a sensory portion of single spinal nerve. The motor part of the single spinal nerve is innervate some group of muscle fiber, and this is known as the myotome. Some group of muscles, this is known as the myotome. What is motor unit? Motor unit, when a single motor neuron, single axon is supply few fiber of the skeletal muscle, this calculation is known as the motor unit. Motor unit. So what is the functional importance of this? By dermatome we can understand our sensory supply of the body. If we lose a sensation of a particular portion, particular skin sensation, we lost particular skin sensation, we can understand damage of a particular single spinal nerve. If we lose a particular movement, we can understand by the myotome we can understand the lesion in some particular skeletal muscle. Motor unit, actually we can understand why some muscle are very accurately function and some muscle are not accurately function. While precise control is required, some motor unit only innervate 8 to 10 muscles, for example extraocular muscle. While precise control is rarely required, certain motor unit innervate thousands of fiber, for example muscle of the thigh. So motor unit is related with precise control and not precise control. Reflex. This is the functional unit of a nervous system, how nervous system is work. So reflex is reflex means involuntary response to a stimuli without direct control of central nervous system. Here there is a following anatomical structure. This is a sensory neuron, you can say also efferent neuron. The terminal portion of the sensory neuron is converted into receptor. So receptor organ is the first structure of reflex. Then efferent neuron, the peripheral and central process of the efferent neuron, we can say sensory neuron, and it may connect a interneuron or it directly connect a motor neuron. So second part A, effector neuron, afferent neuron or motor neuron, and last part is effector organ, skeletal muscle, smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, or a gland. There are two types of reflex, monosynatic reflex and polysynatic reflex. Monophyletic reflex refers to the presence of a direct single synapse, no interneuron is present. You see, the sensory neuron is directly stimulate a motor neuron. This is the monosynatic reflex. In polysynatic reflex, sensory neuron is stimulated multiple interneuron or multiple skeletal, multiple motor neuron. So, separate group of muscles are stimulated by same reflex. Here the knee, this is the example of polysynatic reflex. This is knee jerk. Here when it's tapped here, the patellar ligament, the contraction of the extensor group of muscle and contraction of the flexor group of muscle is occur. Reflex may be divided into four groups: superficial reflexes, corneal reflex and gap reflexes are superficial reflexes. Deep reflexes are the knee jerk, jaw jerk. These are the example of the deep reflex. And there is a visceral reflex, pupillary reflex, and pathological reflex, Babinski sign. This is the normal reactions of when we catch the plantar surface of the sole, and this is the normal reaction, and this is the Babinski sign, the flexions of the great toe and fanning out of the toe. So this is all about this video, end of this video series. If you feel this video is helpful, please share this video and please subscribe my channel. Thank you for watching.